everybody. Welcome to our first God Hour Live. And you'll have to excuse me, I got to get something pretty important to me. But I'm not endorsing this particular company whatsoever. In any case, I got to have my caffeine. Now, the book of Ezekiel, this is what I wanted to discuss or talk about or talk out loud about, is more the thing, discuss with myself, if you will. But if somebody comes in and wants to chime in, that would be awesome too. So I remember reading Ezekiel as a child. Yeah, kids don't often read the Bible as children, I don't think. It'd be nice, but it just so happened that me and a couple cousins were flipping through the Bible. Maybe we were super bored or something. In any case, we were captivated by the Ezekiel, by just the first chapter. So I'm going to read some from it. Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Chebar, I'm not sure, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. In the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's, wow, those are some tricky words, captivity, 5th year of King Jehoiakim. I don't have the Hebrew thing down pat. Lord, forgive me. The word of the Lord came expressly unto Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Chebar, and the hand of the Lord was there upon him. His vision. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire. Also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man, and every one had 4 faces, and every one had 4 wings, and their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. And they had the hands of a man under their wings on their 4 sides, and they 4 had their faces and their wings. He reiterated, pardon me for the running commentary, and also the sniffles, it's kind of cold. Now, imagining myself as, I must have been 8 or 9 when I first read about this, when there's these beings of 4 faces, 4 wings, 4 hands under those, feet that ended in calf's feet, essentially, and they sparkle like the color of burnished brass. Now, I don't know if that's referring to just the hoofs or feet or the entire beings. I assume the entire beings. Continuing on verse 9, their wings were joined one to another. Oh, hello, everybody. I was just talking about the very first chapter of Ezekiel, where this whirlwind of fire comes out of the north, and 4 beings come out of the whirlwind of fire. And as a child, how when I read this, we pondered amongst ourselves, me and my cousins who were trying to decipher this very complicated book of the Bible at a very young age, we were saying, this is like aliens or something. And before you go accusing me of blasphemy or heresy or anything, it goes on to talk about, here in verse 15, now as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures with his four faces. The appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of a beryl, which is a stone, semi-precious stone. And they four had one likeness. And their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. As a kid, I'm still thinking UFOs, aliens, wheels. I mean, how would you, if you were in the 30th year in such an old time, how would you describe something that's essentially sounds like a flying saucer to me? To a kid, bear in mind, this is like over 30 years ago. Chief, I'm referring to as the first time I read, specifically remember reading Ezekiel chapter 1, I was about 9 years old, and we were trying to make sense of this. So I'm revisiting it now and trying to understand it a little better. They turned. Okay, and when they went upon their four sides, and they turned not when they went. I suppose he's talking about the beings. It's like they didn't have to turn, they just went the direction of one of their four faces, I guess. As for their rings, they were so high that they were dreadful, and their rings were full of eyes round about them four. Eyes, lights. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Does anybody have anything that can, any input? I would very much welcome. As stated at the beginning, this is what Ezekiel saw. He was able to look into the heavens, or as it was worded, I already said it once, and I saw visions of God. That's verse 2, verse 1 and 2. And anyway, that's not important. Verse 1. Now, if I just drone on with this Old Testament King James Version, it's going to get very dry and boring. I understand that, but I rely entirely on the King James Version until I find something until I learn some of these ancient languages, I guess. In the meantime, this is the closest English version of God's Word that I have. In any case, he talks on and on about these strange beings, their strange wheels inside wheels, which seem to be vehicles of some sort or transportation devices, which I guess is what vehicles are. But down in verse 26, and above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne. Now remember, because this is closer to Genesis, this is Old Testament stuff, that God created the firmament to separate the heavens and the earth. So above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire throne, blue, shiny. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. So the likeness of a man sitting on a throne with these beings, which are clearly angels of some sort. Now this is God sitting on this throne. These would be the cherubim, would they not? The angels closest to God, the four around his throne, I believe are the cherubs. Howdy, everybody, by the way. Leon, Jaslyn, Jennifer, again, I don't know if you're still there, but Chief Shaman. Curiously enough, Chief, are you there? I got a question. I think he left. It's okay. Now, that basically concludes the whole chapter. I didn't read the whole chapter, of course, but well, let's just get to the very last verse. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one that spake. And I like that they use spake so often in the Old Testament. So, that's the first chapter of Ezekiel. And, I got to get back to work and all that stuff. I'm not cutting this short, but I'm going to stop with just that first chapter of Ezekiel to kind of talk about anything. And I don't know if any of you followed God Hour, but it's mostly been New Testament stuff, particularly the Gospels and Paul's letters. We did a whole thing on the book of Matthew, did a whole thing on the book of Romans, and did a thing on the book of Daniel. But Ezekiel is a different animal altogether. So I think I'm going to start focusing on some Old Testament content and see how that goes for a while. Because you have to appreciate that time has had its effect on the word. Languages have changed, people have changed, certainly technology has changed. So what might have been considered simply a wheel with eyes might be a spaceship with lights by today's definition. The people that wrote these things down only had what they had, available to compare things to. So when you're witnessing visions of the supernatural, the celestial, the heavenly, it's got to be very difficult to put that in words when the most high-tech piece of technology you have is a chariot or something like that. And anywho, I hope everybody had a good 2026, I think, or 2025, and has a good 2026. I'm going to spend my day getting the date wrong on everything I write, but that's okay too. Happens every year. But would anybody like to chime in about the book of Ezekiel? Because I asked my pastor at the time, well, shortly after, I think I was about 13, 14, and I asked my pastor in passing to explain the book of Ezekiel to me, and he told me it couldn't be explained, or that I wouldn't understand it, or something to that effect, something off-putting. But let's not hate on that pastor. In actuality, he was a great pastor. Maybe he just thought I was too young to handle that content. In any case, that kind of pushed me away from a church. I mean, when you ask and don't get a question answered, from your pastor, it's upsetting. But a later pastor finally told me, not one church is right for every person. If you find one that doesn't feel right, go try a different one. Important thing is that you remember that you're there for the Lord, not for yourself or the other people there. With that in mind, today, in New Year, I got to get myself moving. But what a great way to start out a new year with a good hour of Bible reflection. The God Hour Short is up for the day. So thank you all for stopping by. I appreciate it. And be seeing you soon. I got to get a move on. God bless y'all. Have a great day.